Well, good morning, folks, everyone. Hello. Welcome to AtlSecCon, I guess. Happy Thursday morning. My name is Will Knoll. I'll be your MC for the weekend. I am from back out west. I am from Calgary. I hope you don't hold that against me. And I'm not just out here to try to figure out what's going on with the law enforcement's understanding about how web servers work out here. That's our federal agency. We all take that on the chin together, I think.
Ladies and gentlemen, please make your way into the main ballroom. Our session will begin in 1 minute.
So, glad you made it to the ballroom. One thing that you can probably hold against me is that about 2 blocks away from where I live in Calgary, there is a bar called, a gastropub called Blowers in Grafton. And inside there's a lot of very interesting black and white photos of street signs, and there's donair meat on everything. Donair pizza, donair nachos. The Caesar comes with this skewer of donair meat, stacked like poker chips. It's about $10. It's not bad. That's not what Halifax, Nova Scotia means to me. My father is from out this way. He wears his X-ring proudly. I spent a lot of childhood summers out here. Truro, Stellarton, New Glasgow, Chance Harbor. Late August bonfires, U-picks, clam digging. It was a good time. The last time that I was out this way, however, when I was a much younger man, I was with my father, and it was the last time that we got to visit his father before his passing. And I got to experience through my father's eyes on that trip what it means you can never go home. In his case, it was, well, you can drive kind of close to where it was before the strip mine moved in and scooped it out. That night, or the last 2 nights of that trip, we stayed at a friend's house outside of Falmouth. And every door and window was unlocked, and there was just this complete sense of security in that space. Not too long after that, back home in Calgary, 2 young men walked into my parents' house while they were asleep, took their wallets and the jewelry from the bathroom, and woke my mother on their exit out the front door. Dad had, as he always did, left all the doors unlocked. So, you might say his threat model was a little out of date. I think over the next few days we're going to be talking a lot about the new. We're going to be talking about the new threat landscapes, new techniques, new understandings. But I'm sure that you're probably going to end up at more than one talk which might mention something along the lines of that we're still leaving the doors unlocked, that we're still failing to do the minimum or the best practices that we should be. Heading out east, coming over here, has been a very good reminder for me of what that sense of security was. I don't know. Those late night bonfires, man, the reason, I couldn't figure it out then, but that's what that feeling was. Not a care in the world, a complete sense of security. And I want to thank all of you guys here for working towards that type of security for everyone in your families and the extended global community and things like that. I don't know. I just wanted to say thank you to you guys when we first started here, or at least that's what the 4 bottles of wine on the plane said. So cheers. Thanks for coming to AtlSecCon. Good morning. Yes. Now, before we get completely started here, there's just a little bit of the housekeeping that we have to go through. The simple things like your Wi-Fi code and your hashtag is AtlSecCon, just like the Twitter handle. There are vendor displays out in the AtlSecCon cafes, so please go and get your passport stamped. And the passports, please get them completely stamped and dropped off. You will have the chance to enter to win one of 2 MacBook Pros, and I believe one of 2 Pen Testing with Kali OSCP courses offered by Offensive Security with 30 days of lab time. You may need more. I know I did. Conference badges, I never completed. Conference badges, if you need to wear it to gain entry into all of the sessions and for the food. If you do lose your badge and it doesn't turn up, you can procure new ones for about $100 at the registration desk. Infosec in track 1 will be held here in the ballroom. All of the other tracks will be held downstairs on the Argyle Street level. Before we go any further, I just was hoping that I could bring up Jeff from Security Innovations. He's going to give you a quick rundown on the CTF that's happening here. Please welcome Jeff.
Good morning. Like Will, I share a lot of summers growing up, coming back home to where my parents grew up in Nova Scotia as well. So Security Innovation, today we're hosting the CTF event, and if you're not sure what a CTF is, it stands for Capture the Flag. And if you don't know what that means, it means we've got vulnerable sites for you to hack. And if you've never hacked a thing before, that's okay. They're meant to be very accessible and welcoming, so we're hosting a competition that's going to run for the next 2 days. And if you brought your laptop, you can play along. All you need is a web browser. Our booth is right outside those doors, and have some great prizes. So if you'd like to give that a try, even if it's only for an hour or two, and I guarantee you'll learn something. I'm going to be around to help you out. There'll be lots of other people who you can learn things from as well. So if that's new to you, yeah, bring. That's all I need.
Thank you very much, Jeff, and hopefully you guys get a chance to compete at that. Next up, we'd like to just introduce to you the team that's responsible for putting together this event. This conference is mind-boggling to me, and we've only just started. We don't really quite have anything like this in Calgary yet. We've got CanSec West, we've got AtlSecCon. I'm actually starting to feel a little bit of envy here, like we need to, make up the work. I'd like to introduce to you the board here. We have Travis Barlow, Daryl McLeod, Nick Jorfy, Andrew Cosma, and Steve Quinn, these five gentlemen standing over here. It takes a lot of work to put together an event like this, so please give them a round of applause. Beyond that, we have the speakers dinner will be starting at 7 p.m. at Lot 6, which is located on Argyle Street, right across from the convention center, I believe is that street. Dinner served at 7:30 if you have a ticket for that. And I believe there's a social today at 6, 5 to 6. Or is that tomorrow? Yes, I see a nod. There was a nod. Our first speaker, your keynote speaker for today is Ted Demopoulos. Sorry. Perfect. Okay. From the SANS Institute. Ted's first significant exposure to computers was in 1977 when he had unlimited access to his high school's PDP-11, and so he hacked at it. He consequently almost flunked out, but learned that he liked playing with computers a lot. His business pursuits began in college and have been continuous ever since then. His background includes over 25 years of experience in information security and business, including 20 years as an independent consultant. Ted helped start a successful information security company and was CTO at textbook failure of a startup. He has advised several other businesses and is a frequent speaker at conferences and other events, quoted often by the press. He is a recipient of the Department of Defense Award of Excellence and the author of the recent book, Infosec Rockstar, How to Accelerate Your Career Because Geek Will Only Get You So Far. In his spare time, he also enjoys food and Greek wine and fly fishing and playing with his children. So please, everyone, please welcome Ted to the stage.
It is a great time to be us. There is so much opportunity in security now. It's very easy to look at the headlines, just the news, the radio, and see all these bad things that are happening. My own PII and health information has been hacked multiple times in the last year. And it's very easy to look at that and to say, it's like, well, we're not doing a very good job. But in fact, we are doing a good job. We need to do better. The importance of what we're doing is increasing on a regular basis. Certainly, the bad people have been taking massive opportunities. There have been massive fortunes made by Dr. Evil and so forth. But there's also enormous opportunities for us as well. Now, Infosec is not necessarily easy to get into, but once you're in there, I'm gonna use the vernacular. I'm gonna quote my friend, Jonathan Ham. Some of you may know John. He said, quote, using the vernacular, none of us should have a job that sucks. There's just so much opportunity. There's so many places we can add value. There's so many fun and valuable things that we can do. Now, some people are more successful than others. Some of us simply amaze me with how successful they are. And we all have our own definitions of success. To me, success means being listened to, and in general, we're not listened to as much as we'd like. It means making a positive difference. And yes, for many of us, it means money as well. There is a financial component. Money does matter. I got 3 little kids I'm putting through expensive schools, so that's a factor as well. Well, I started talking to people that I find incredibly successful. Some you've heard of, some you haven't, but they're making a positive difference in our field. But what makes them so good? Why they're listened to? Why they make a positive difference? Why they're respected? And one term kept popping up. First, it was a joke. It was Rockstar, an Infosec Rockstar. Now, I define my terms. I don't use vague terms. Some people do. Generally, we don't. So, like, what's a Rockstar? Well, a Rockstar, quite simply, lots of definitions are all very similar. A Rockstar is a person who's renowned or revered in his or her field of accomplishment. So, renowned means widely known. You might even use the term celebrity. Now, not everybody wants to be stopped walking down the street and asked for signatures, but that's not going to happen. We don't need to worry about that. Well known in your industry, maybe just in your company, that can be more than enough. Certainly, if we're just hiding somewhere and nobody knows about us, we can't make much of a positive difference. Revered. Revered means respected, and there's 2 things you need to be respected. First of all, you need some valuable knowledge. The term expert's often used. And we don't understand the word expert that much. Expert means you have valuable, specialized knowledge. It doesn't mean you're the #1 expert in the world. It doesn't mean there's nothing else to learn. If you think there's nothing else to learn, you're not an expert, you're a bozo. Now, we build expert status normally in our careers, in our work. If we're halfway decent and halfway care, and we're all more than halfway decent and more than halfway care. So we build expert knowledge automatically in our jobs. We don't always get that expert status. People don't always know we have that knowledge. And if people don't know we have that knowledge, we can't make as much of a difference. We can't get as many results. Now, the first few times I gave this talk, I asked people in the audience, and we have a lot of people here to ask, so I'm not going to, what Rockstar meant to them. And successful was mentioned a lot. We talked about how we all have different definitions of success. Creative. Certainly rock stars are creative. In our field, we have to be creative. I've been a consultant for almost 30 years. LinkedIn just told me 28 years, which is kind of amazing. If I have a project, and it might have the same name, same description as a project I did 2 years ago, it's going to be a very different project. Everything we do is different than what we've done before. We have to be creative, and generally we are a creative group. Unique. There's only one Brian Krebs. There's only one Bruce Schneier. There's only one Bill Gates. There's only one Madonna. We could go on and mention all these names, but we're all unique. We all have different skills we bring to the table. We're not irreplaceable or interchangeable and so forth. Also, maybe controversial, and controversial isn't necessarily good or bad. Some people hate the term rock star, right? That's a controversial name to a lot of people. Some people prefer the name ninja or pirate, and I always say, well, like, ninjas and pirates kill people, and in general, that's not a good thing. But, use whatever term you want. Egotistical, that's not good. I don't think we have a lot of egos in our field. I really don't. I know that I can email people, extremely well known, who have never heard of me, to the best of my knowledge. Or maybe I've talked to once, and they'll answer me generally. So I know you had Brian Krebs here. I've never met Brian in person. I sent him an email one Sunday morning at 6:30 in the morning asking for some input to my book. I'm sure he gets a lot of email. He answered me within 5 minutes. That's a man that doesn't have a lot of ego. He wanted to help. That's awesome. Eccentric. Yeah, we can pull off being eccentric. We're creative people. Creative people tend to be eccentric. That's okay. And one thing that kept getting mentioned the most was sex and drugs. You say Rockstar, people say sex and drugs, so we'll cover that very quickly at the end because it comes up all the time. So here's a guitar player. I know it's a bass guitar. Let's say he's the best guitar player in the world. Technically speaking, he is the best guitar player or one of the best. He's phenomenal. His geek skills, his technical guitar geek skills are just mind-blowing. And let's say he only plays guitar in his parents' basement where he lives. Who cares how good he is? He's not bringing his joy of music to the world. He's not adding value to the world. Now, he's got a few other things going for him. Looks like he has some stage presence. Right? I don't know if I could pull this off. I gotta look silly doing this, but he looks pretty good. Hopefully he has some passion for playing. Hopefully he likes to play. Hopefully he practices. If he's in a band, presumably, hopefully he can communicate and get along well with his bandmates. Just the technical geek guitar skills in this case, they're not enough. Now, quick side note, these aren't my thoughts at all. This has been really a community project. I've talked to both formally and informally dozens, if not a couple hundred people over the last few years on why they are so successful in security, why they make a difference. There's names you've heard of. There's names you haven't heard of. There's lots of people that just didn't want credit and so forth. Also, some scientific research. For example, we're going to talk about influence later on, or we might call it social engineering. A lot of what we think about social engineering actually isn't right. It just works because we think it's going to work. It's folklore. But it turns out scientists have been studying social engineering or influence for a very long time. And we can learn from them and we can use them to be more effective in security. So first of all, I didn't get this for the first 10 years of my career. I thought my job was to play with cool technical stuff. And boy, did I love the first few years of working after college. I was playing with technical stuff. Well, that was sort of a detail. I was really there to support my organization. I didn't necessarily get that when I was young. But we're there to support our organization. To support our organization, we need to know something about them. What do they do? Who are their customers? We all have customers. We may not use that term, but we have customers. They're the people we serve, whether they're internal, external, whether a commercial company, whether we work for the government, whether for a nonprofit. We all have customers. A little about our industry and more. There's also the corporate culture, the set of written and unwritten rules on how things work in every organization. You learn them over time. As you learn them, you become more effective, more efficient in your organization. Now, I don't care whether you love the organization you work for and you want to stay there for the rest of your life, or you're actively looking for another job. I firmly believe supporting your organization is supporting yourself. And that's why we have jobs, to support the organization. Right? We're not the dog, we're the tail. We're there to support the organization. Now, if you're a consultant like me, you have a bunch of different organizations to support. And I spend a lot of time just reading about my clients, just in the news and in the press and shareholder reports, just about anything I can find to help serve them better. Now, I broke Rockstar into 5 levels. There's nothing magical about 5 levels. Sort of like the 7 layers of the OSI model. They're arbitrary. They could have picked 9 or 5 or 11, but 9 was a reasonable number. So I've just broken it into 5, just a framework for discussion. Bottom level, we have survive. You need a job. So I worked with a big insurance company about 8 months ago, and they had some very new employees right out of university. Some of them literally lived in their parents' basements. 2 of them did. They're at the survive level. They needed their job. They had student loans. Some of them wanted to move out of their parents' house. They're at the survive level. At some point, you hit stable. You've got a job. It's a pretty good job. You like it, or at least most of it. No job's perfect. I love what I do, but there's some parts I'm not too crazy about as well, like filling out expense reports and jet lag and so forth. But you're stable. If you lose your job, you can get another one. It might take you a little while. Might take a couple weeks, a couple months, maybe even longer, but you can find another job. You're stable. Now, a lot of people bounce between survive and stable, or maybe are fixed and stable, and they're happy. I've got an old friend, one of my oldest friends, Large John, very technical guy. He's usually, however, an unemployed factory worker. Laziest man I know. He bounces between survive and stable. He's also one of the happiest people that I know. You know, it's like more power to him. That doesn't describe most of us. Expert. At the expert level, you have developed some expertise, which I said before, we naturally do at our jobs. We develop expertise with experience. We don't necessarily get that expert status, so our knowledge can be as valuable and helpful, and we'll talk about that. Now, I like to say, because a lot of us don't like being called an expert, I like to say Einstein was an expert, but you don't need to be an Einstein to be an expert. Authority. The authority level, you are an expert, but you've got something else. Maybe you've developed some intellectual property. Maybe you've done some work on open source. Maybe you're speaking or organizing conferences. Maybe you've written a book. Maybe you've done a TED. You've done something else. You've provided more value, and you're recognized for it. At the Rockstar level, you're an authority plus more. You're widely respected and widely known so that you can have more of a positive effect. You can get more good things done. Now, this isn't atomic. It's not like you're exactly in one of these levels. You could be at the survive level and have some Rockstar skills. There might be some areas where you're simply phenomenal at. My friend Large John, although he's between survive and stable, I'm going to say he's survived right now. He's unemployed and not really looking for a job. He's a Rockstar writer. Oh boy, can this guy write. I wish I could write like he could. So he's got Rockstar writing skills. He's one of the best writers I know, but he's back down in survive. Now, we need core competence. Not everybody works out in every field. I would guess most of us are probably capable of fundamental competence. That's a fair bet at a security conference. My mother probably couldn't work in Infosec. We'll ignore the fact that she's 85. She's quite bright, but she doesn't really get this world, and she probably couldn't work here. Another example. I love music. I can read music. I own a musical instrument. I have a piano. I used to manage bands in Boston in the 80s. But guess what? I can't have core competence. You know why? I'm slightly tone deaf. There's just no way I could be a great musician. It doesn't mean I have any less fun playing music or listening to music, but I can't have core competence there. But core competence isn't that big a deal for most of us. Most people can do it. So the geek skills, that core competence, they're essential. You absolutely need the technical skills. The geek skills. Now, the geek skills are going to vary exactly what they are depending on your role. If you're an attorney working with security issues, they're going to be different than if you're a pen tester. And they're going to be different than if you're an iPhone forensics person. But the geek technicals, they're required, they're essential, they're table stakes. But that's the easy part for most of us. We might not think it's easy, but it is. We often look at how much we don't know instead of looking at how much we know. In a lot of fields, a lot of people think they're better than they are. You see that in a lot of fields. People think they're pretty good, they're awesome, and you look and think they're really mediocre. I don't see that in most technical fields, and I definitely don't see that in security. Most of us are better than we think we are, technically. So there's other skills I'm going to claim are equally important. The geek part, geek will only get you so far. Things like managing your boss, social engineering the office, communication's a big one. Leadership, getting out of our own way, which is both understanding a little bit about project management and managing our own time effectively. We tend to be bad at that. I know I am. I've worked at that. I've gotten much better. So, here's a list of topics we're going to be going over in the next few minutes. Let's start with communications. We need good communication skills. Boy, have I worked on these. I've gotten so much better, and I'm still working on improving. It's generally easy to communicate among your peer group. It's very easy for most of us to communicate within this room. Within the rest of our organization can be much more difficult. Remember, a lot of the people we need to communicate that we are supporting are non-technical. Most executives are non-technical. A lot of people are afraid of technology and afraid of us. You can improve your communication skills. So a friend of mine, Jake Williams, Malware Jake, some of you may know him, one of the 2 hackers ever endorsed by the shadow brokers. Yeah, he was outed. Got a company rapidly growing called Rendition Security. He's one of the people I interviewed for my book. It was an informal interview over a couple of beers. And when he's hiring, and he's usually hiring, the #1 thing that he looks for are communication skills. He can find plenty of people with great geek skills. It's communication skills. And for him, written are more important than verbal, because most of the time people are writing more reports than being in front of customers. The geek skills are essential. If you don't have them, he's not going to even consider hiring you. But the differentiator are communication and other non-geek skills. So we're not good at finishing things. I traditionally am horrible at finishing things. One of the reasons is a lot of us are perfectionists. And nothing's perfect. Right? Good enough's good enough. So when I was flying here, I flew from Boston. And I got to the airport early because I always get to the airport early. I'd rather waste time in the airport than miss the occasional flight or panic and try to get through in the US TSA in a timely fashion. And I picked up a book by Dan Brown. Now, Dan Brown is the most, I think, successful author ever. His first book, Digital Fortress, was on a true event on that PDP-11 in my bio that I hacked at. And of course, he wrote, I keep thinking he wrote the Da Vinci Code. That's his big book. And I know Dan, went to high school with Dan. I picked up one of his books in the bookstore, and I'm flipping through it. I think it was Angels and Demons. There's a typo in it. Does that make the book any less valuable? I promise my book has at least a couple of typos. It doesn't make it any less valuable. Right? You want to finish things, whatever they are, and release them on the world, or there's no value to them at all. Yeah, nothing's perfect. Now, I'm not saying to accept mediocre things. We don't want mediocrity, but sometimes 90% done is enough. 90% of what we would like to complete in the perfect world. Time's another problem. It's like, yeah, we only have 24 hours a day. As our careers and lives progress, we still only have 24 hours, but we have more responsibility. By the way, I got much better at managing my time when I had little kids, because all of a sudden I had these demands on my time that I could not ignore and that would not go away. No, somebody always mentions that, like, well, what about leap seconds? There's always a time geek or two. Leap seconds don't matter, okay? It's like a second, and there are such things. So we get 24 hours a day. We got to get the most important things done, finished, right? The most important. If you have a to-do list with 17 things on it, you're not going to get those 17 things done. What are you going to do? The ones you think you can finish? The ones that are easiest? The ones you happen to feel like doing that day? Or the most important ones? Clearly, we want to get the most important things done because we can't do everything. And downtime's critical too. I get my best ideas during downtime. I even wake up sometimes in the middle of the night with great ideas and write them down. 19 out of 20 times, they're unintelligible in the morning. I have no idea what I wrote. I like to go bike riding, and when I'm biking, sometimes I'll come up with ideas, and I'll speak them into my phone and so forth, right? We get our best ideas during downtime. Now, here's the bad news. You're never going to get caught up. It's a quaint idea, getting caught up from, like, the past. When our work was all visual, we could get caught up. Oh, when I take these fields, when I, like, harvest these fields, I'm done. Or when I take all this stuff and put it into boxes and ship it, I'm done. But a lot of our work is in visual these days. I have emails I'm probably never going to answer. I do answer my emails, not in a timely fashion always. I'm going to be a couple hundred behind at least at the end of this week. I have PDFs I want to read. I have projects I want to start. I've got at least 3 other books I want to write. Can't do everything, right? And you're never going to get caught up. Since you're never going to get caught up, it's very important to know what you're not going to do. I don't love the idea of a to-do list. I have a not to-do list. Here's the stuff I'm not going to do. It might be cool stuff. It might be stuff I love. It might be stuff I want to do, but I'm not doing it. Why? Every time you say yes to something, you're implicitly saying no to other things. So let me give you 2 examples of things that are on my current not to-do list. I really want to write another book. I want to write a book specifically on consulting in our field, on Infosec consulting. I would love to do that. I put together a bunch of material. I probably have half a book written. I'm not going to do it. It's on my not to-do list. I may do it in the future, and I hope to, but right now, not thinking about it, not doing it, nothing like that. Another example, I have some educational material on security, and I spend a lot of time speaking, I spend a lot of time teaching classes and so forth. And this is actually for CPAs and certified financial planners in New York State. It's some pretty good material I've written, and I make royalties off of it, so it makes me money. And when people take it, they get CPE so they can maintain their certifications. It's pretty good. It's evergreen content. It's basic security principles which do not change. So it's evergreen. It doesn't need to be updated. It also deserves a complete and total rewrite. And I should do it, but I'm not going to. I'd love to, but it will take time away from other projects that are more important. And I can't do everything. Now, we have the concept of positioning. That's what people think about us or think about something. For example, security or something else. Now, the concept of positioning, very closely related to branding, comes from a book called Positioning by Jack Rees and Al Trout. Classic business. It's a fun read. You can read it like an hour and a half or 2 hours. And the idea is things will have a position in people's mind, and they don't change very easily. So I drive a Volvo. When I think Volvo, I think it's a safe car. I think safety. Now, is Volvo the safest car out there? I don't know. I had a Porsche. I don't think safety when it comes to Porsche. My Porsche sank, and fine German engineering and salt water don't mix very well. And I was having kids, so I bought a Volvo. When I think of Keith Richards, maybe one of the best or the best rock and roll guitarists ever, I think drugs and rock and roll. Now, Keith Richards hasn't had a drug bust since the 70s, 1970s, although he looks like he could be the 1870s. I still think drugs and rock and roll, for all we know, he's like a vegan and he meditates all day long and thinks good thoughts. Yeah, I don't think so, but it doesn't matter, right? Starbucks. Starbucks is not my favorite coffee, but I like Starbucks. I drink Starbucks. When I think Starbucks, I think it's strong, it's fresh, it's hot, and there's a place to sit and hang out at all Starbucks, except in some airports. See a Starbucks, I want to sit and work on my laptop and drink coffee, I go there. So let's say all of a sudden Volvo came out with the most amazing sports car. Performed better than Lamborghinis and Ferraris and Porsches, and it's like, that'd be a really hard sell. Because we think Volvo, we think safety. Let's say Starbucks started making some phenomenal whiskey. There's amazing whiskey. It's possible they're in the drink industry, right? That would be a really hard sell because I don't think that's not the position they have in my head. So, positioning matters. Now, if you are an amazing rock star, you're just got such amazing positioning in people's minds, a lot of things don't matter. Let's say you're George Clooney. Okay, George Clooney is one of my favorite actors. Rock star of an actor. He's done some phenomenal thing. Ocean's 11. I could mention a lot of other movies. He did a movie about goats. Anyone see this movie? Yeah, I've got a few people. Yeah, it wasn't a big hit. It was definitely not. It was a fun movie. I saw it with a friend of mine. I saw it with somebody totally inappropriate, but that's another story. We got a big Coke, poured half of it out, filled the rest with Jack Daniels, and we laughed through this whole movie. It was not a great movie, but it was a fun movie. Now, let's say that Clooney was not such an amazing actor with a great reputation. People would have said things like, man, that Clooney guy, man, his career's on the skids. He co-starred with a goat in a movie. And this movie didn't do very well. It was a stupid movie. But instead, because he's like one of the 0.001% of the population that has such an amazing positioning in people's minds. They're like, oh, Clooney wanted to do this fun, silly movie. Yeah, he just did it because he just wanted to. Isn't that cool? Well, we're not George Clooney. So, the organization we work for matters. We're associated with. That's part of our positioning in people's minds. The boss we work for matters. If we work for some pointy-haired boss like in Dilbert, somebody that everyone acknowledges as an idiot, how can you work for that fool? That rubs off on us. That's part of our positioning. Your peers matter. Yeah. I get to hang out with some really smart people, and more on that in a moment. If you're in management, the people you're hiring, they matter. Your friends matter. Now, I like to say I like to be the stupidest person in the room. I do. I like hanging out with smart people. Fortunately, a lot of my friends are some of the smartest people that I know are just incredibly brilliant people, whether they're in our field or in other fields. I was just hanging out with two ladies. One of them is an absolute rock star in the horse training world. I mean, she's just phenomenal at that. Really bright, very motivating hanging out with her. And another one is an expert on widows and griefing. Now, these are things I know almost nothing about. But they're just like incredibly bright in this field. And boy, when I come to places like this, I get to hang out with incredibly smart people. Most of the time, we don't think we're that smart, to be honest. Some of the smartest people I know don't think they're that bright. They think they're getting there. They're working on it. Best way to become a rock star is to hang out with them, whether they're in our field or some other field. So, positioning. What's your position in people's mind? That's a good question. Turns out it's probably not what you think it is. So I did this exercise, and I'm not sure where I got this phrase. What is it? What do you think my top personality quirks or traits are? I'm not sure where I came up with that. I've tried to actually track down where I got that from. I thought it came from Michael Porter, but it didn't. And I emailed that out to a few people that know me, just to see what they had to say. Now, my first thought was I just, grab people and, ask them. So, let's say I grabbed Travis. Now, I've been talking to Travis on the phone. We've been emailing back and forth, but I just physically saw him for the first time last night. One of the first things I did was I said, Travis, what do you think about me? I mean, that probably wouldn't go over well. He'd probably say something like, oh, you're a nice guy. We're glad to have you. He probably would have, backed away, right? So, I sent out emails to a few people. I didn't get back what I thought I was going to get. I got I'm intelligent. Okay, I like that. I'm outgoing. Well, I'm fairly social, but I'm a classic introvert. If you look up the definition, that's me. Yeah, that doesn't mean not social, but I'm definitely an introvert. I'm fun. Okay, I like that part. Eccentric. Well, that kind of goes with our field to some extent. I thought I was going to get hardworking. I think I worked pretty hard. Last night after the bar, I was going through some emails and sending intelligent answers back, for example. Or at least I think they were intelligent. I thought I was going to get technical. I didn't get any of that. I didn't get what I expected. It was a very useful exercise. A number of my friends have done this. Now, changing what people think about you or security in your organization or anything else is really hard. Positioning, if you can change it at all, takes a very long time. And it may not be possible to get to where you want to go from where you are. A friend of mine just left his organization. Been working in security there for about 7 years. Security in this organization is seen as the people that say no. Security is seen as the people you avoid at all costs. He's been there about 7 years. He's made some enormous positive progress, but it really hasn't been that much in the big picture. He left. He's like, I'm going to go somewhere else where they like me better, where we can have more of a positive difference faster. Now, the reason it's hard to change positioning is people get what they expect. So what organization? I was hired initially for a failing project. I got one of those, hey Ted, what are you doing? Can you get on a plane today calls? Which I get occasionally. Not so much anymore because we're all busier these days. In the project, I turned it around. It failed less. It was a moderate success. And this company called me in over the years periodically when they had a disaster. In this project, in this company, I'm associated with bad projects. It's like, oh yeah, that project's going poorly. It's like, oh, of course it is. Ted's working on that project. Even though it's illogical, I make an enormous positive difference, but my position is there. It's like, yeah, Ted worked with Paro. All of Ted's projects fails. There was another organization I worked with where I could do no wrong. It didn't matter what I did. People thought I was doing great things. My initial project was a big success there. If I was working on some project, and I was often the embedded security guy in development projects in this organization, the project was later somehow messed up. Instead, totally different perspective. It was like, oh man, this project's going poorly. It's good we've got Ted on it. I like Picasso. He does some really weird stuff, but I like him. My mother doesn't. She doesn't like Picasso at all. She hates Picasso stuff, but she won't tell you that. She's like, oh, I don't get Picasso. I don't understand his work. It's like, no, Mom, you hate his stuff. Like, no, he's a great artist. Because the position Picasso has is, he's a great artist. Like, no, Mom, you actually hate his stuff. If I took a Picasso and slapped a Jane Doe or Fred Smith on it, my mother would look at it and say, that's horrible. That person thinks they're an artist. Right? Because it's, people get what they expect. I'm a champagne geek. I really am. There's a revolution going on in Champagne where small growers that used to sell their grapes are bottling their own juice now, and it's all just grape juice. It's nothing to get that excited about. I just kind of like it. When a friend of mine graduated from college last year, about a year and a half ago, I opened a bottle of Dom Perignon to celebrate with her. She was excited. Not only was it real champagne, but it's Dom Perignon. It has to be fantastic. And actually, it is really good. Well, 2 weeks ago, a fellow wine geek of mine, my friend Chuck, I call him my de facto psychoanalyst because he's a psychoanalyst, it was his 60th birthday. I hadn't opened Dom Perignon. I was in charge of champagne for the party. I opened 3 bizarre champagnes most people have never heard of. A Jacques Salas, I opened Krug, which is a little bit better known. So I opened some niche stuff. Now, he knows it because he's a champagne geek. But if I had opened it for this other friend of mine, she would have been like, oh, cool, it's French champagne. Even though I think it's better than Dom Perignon. I think it's a lot better. People think Dom Perignon is great because of the name. People get what they expect. Now, often people don't think great things about security. Often they think of us as the people that say no instead of enabling things. Often they think of us as the people to avoid in some places. Now this is changing slowly, and it's very different in some organizations than other organizations, obviously. It can be hard to get people to do the right thing when it comes to security. It can be hard. So we're talking about influence. Now when we say influence, we might think social engineering. Most or at least a lot of what we consider to be true in social engineering is quite literally folklore. It really is. But as I said, influence has been studied by scientists for a long time. In fact, there's a great book out there called Influence, creative name, by Dr. Robert Cialdini. I ignored this book for years. It sounds like a boring textbook. I don't know, this is like a fun read. You can read this on an airplane in like a couple hours. He breaks down influence into 6 areas. Let's talk about these areas and where we might be able to use these in security. First of all, humans are consistent. When we make a commitment to something, we tend to stick with it. And the more public the commitment, the more consistent we are. That's why you will see people in relationships that are not great for them, that don't do anything about them for long periods of time, because we're consistent. That's why you'll see people with jobs where it's not a great job for them. It's perhaps the wrong role. Maybe it's even a totally bad job, but they don't move because we're consistent. In security, it's sort of the foot in the door principle. If you can get people to make a small commitment to security, to doing the right thing, it's easier to get them to make larger commitments. If we can convince people they can't or shouldn't write their password on a little yellow sticky and put it on their monitor, and then when we tell them they can't do that, they don't put it under their keyboard, we've probably all seen that before, it's easier to get them to make bigger commitments to doing things correctly or well from the security sense. Anthropologists tell us reciprocation is the basis of all human society. I don't know if that's true, but it sounds good. But certainly reciprocation works to get people to do things. If you do something for somebody, they want to do something for you. Interestingly, the research shows even if you do something for them that they don't want, they still want to do something for you. So my biggest client is the Sands Institute. They used to have these mouse pads with security slogans on them. Nobody wanted them. But you know what? You gave them to people, and like they were happy you gave them something. They were more likely to listen to what you told them to do. One way we can use reciprocation, 2 of my clients now started giving talks on security for people. It's like, yeah, talks on security. Nobody wants talks on security except for us, and this is like preaching to the choir. They started giving talks on things people actually wanted to hear about. One was online safety for children, and the other was online financial security, banking security, and so forth. And man, these were mobbed, like people actually wanted it. It was like, the security people are actually doing something we like. They must be okay. They must be good people. And boy, we found an increase in people, I don't want to use the word just compliance, but doing the right thing in security. It was reciprocation. So, going down the road, cell phone's dead, you're starving. There's 2 restaurants. One's crowded, one's empty. Which is the better restaurant? Well, we naturally going to think the crowded one is better. May or may not be true. It often is, though, right? But not always. That's social proof. We are herd animals to some extent. Hopefully we're not like actually sheep. But social proof works. That's why a lot of organizations use testimonials. You can't say you're great, but if somebody else says you're great, that can be used for social proof. If we can show some people are doing the right thing when it comes to security, other people are more likely to. So I've got a great story I stole from my friend Eric Cole. This one organization, security department, decided to make good examples of people. Part of the security awareness campaign. They said, oh, like every couple months, we'll pick somebody that's, this following security procedures and doing good things, and we'll give them an award, and we'll like publicize it. And what they did was the first person they picked, they gave a $300 coupon to eat at Morton's Steakhouse. A pretty nice gift. They'd make an example of you. And a positive example, and this worked really well because the first person they picked was a vegetarian. So it was funny, and it like went viral in the company. And they ended up giving them something else. I guess you can go to Morton's and eat vegetables. I don't know. But yet, social proof, they were making positive examples of people, and that made a measurable difference. People follow authority, even those of us who are anti-authoritarian or think we are. So if I was in charge of security at Apple, let's say 10, 15 years ago, I'd want to get Steve Jobs' endorsement. I'd want him to say, hey, security matters. Right? Bill Gates did something very similar at Microsoft, and their security has really changed in the last decade plus. So in ISO 27002, the ISMS, which I have it right, is the Information Security Management Statement. If you get somebody in charge, CEO or someone up high, to basically say, security is cool, it can make a measurable difference. Or more formally to say, security is important to the operations of our organization. We support a culture of security. That can make an enormous difference in people doing the right things from our perspective. Liking's interesting. It's not a surprise we prefer to say yes to people we like. Research on liking is interesting. We like people similar to us. As a matter of fact, salespeople who try to influence all the time are great with finding any similarities. Oh, you're from Des Moines, Iowa? My niece's ex-boyfriend's aunt once drove through Des Moines, right? Any similarity, no matter how slight, makes a difference. You're from Halifax? Oh, I was there once. Beautiful place. Whether I think that's true or not, I do rather like Halifax. I'm psyched to be here. We like attractive people. Now, attractive doesn't just mean physically attractive. Well, that's certainly a component. But I think we've all met somebody who, as we get to know them, we thought they were more attractive or cute or whatever the term is. People we eat with, that may be why so much business is done over food. A lot of business is conducted over food and drink. Most of my deals, quite literally, are done in bars. Very often there's no contract, right? Just a handshake, if even that. We like people to compliment us. Did you lose weight? You're looking good. You look like you're like 20 pounds lighter and 20 IQ points higher. That's probably not going to work, right? Because that's not a real compliment. But sincere compliments, research shows they make a difference. And also people connected with good news. And we know, of course, that some cultures would kill messengers with bad news. So what can we do from security viewpoint? Right? Be nice, be likable, try to connect us with good things and so forth. Now, scarcity is tough to use in security. Because to some extent we're selling, and I don't love the word selling, but we're selling something a lot of people don't want. Hey, want some security? No, thank you, I'm all done, I'm all set. But scarcity does work. So, quick example. It's March. GDPR enforcement kicks in March 25th. Sorry, May 25th, right? It's May. Is it May? I think it's May 25th. Well, one organization, got a friend working there. The security department said, hey, you all got to comply with GDPR. We all got to do that. We can help 3 groups. We can hold you through it and make it easier for you to. We only have enough resources to help 3 groups in the organization. They got 3 groups immediately because there was scarcity. What if they said, hey, you all got to comply. We're here to help you. Come on in. That doesn't work as well as we've only got 3. Only got enough resources to help 3 groups. Now, it's also important to be professional, particularly when people don't know you as well. When you're new to a project or a team or an organization or a relationship. Being reliable, being prompt, being punctual. If a project's going to be 6 months late, you don't tell people the day before, right? You knew ahead of time, you let them know that's the right thing to do. Being ethical. People will forgive you for making mistakes. We all make mistakes. People will not forgive you for being a sleazebag. Right? Ethics are important. Now, I'm not going to tell people how to look or dress, but I'm going to tell you my friend Eric Conrad once was interviewing people at a startup, and a guy showed up in a bathrobe for the interview. He showed up in a bathrobe, and the bathrobe was tied with a rope, didn't match, that looked like he might have pulled it out of a gutter or something like that. Now, it turns out the guy was Hobbit, who wrote the original NCAT, among other things. He hired Hobbit. Hobbit worked out for a little while, not long term. Don't show up in a bathrobe to a job interview. It worked in this case, but you're just looking professional. Now, once people get to know you in an organization, show up dressed like a bumblebee if that's your thing. But blending in even just a little bit helps get things done. Right? At least initially, it's important. Now, we talked about the difference between being an expert and having people know you have expertise, being a recognized expert, where your expert knowledge can be more likely to be used, to be leveraged to get more done, to do more good things, and so forth. So I talk about letting the world know that you rock. First of all, how about online? If I Google you, and I can't find anything, or I can't find anything about security or what I'm looking for, I'm going to have some questions like, are you for real? I know people Google me all the time, or Bing me, or whatever search engine you want. Something's got to show up. And if nothing shows up, there might be something wrong. I met this woman a little less than a year ago at a trash can. So my sister's house, the woman was emptying the trash. I hit it off with a trash lady. Well, it actually turns out she wasn't the trash lady. She owned a garbage truck, and her driver was sick. Well, she owned a fleet of garbage trucks. And poor lady was a widow. Her husband had died maybe a year and a half before. She didn't get out very much. Not much showed up when I Googled her. But you know what? She knew my sister. She knew the old Greek priest when I was a kid. She was half Greek. She was part of the community. It's like, how do I not know you already? We hit it off, but not much showed up about her. Now, my guard was down because she knew my sister and the other people in common. Let's see. Garbage removal. I think organized crime. And there is a heavy organized crime involvement, at least traditionally. Before that, you know what she did? She imported racehorses. Another area that organized crime is heavily involved. No, couldn't be. Not my little hometown in Dover, New Hampshire. Poor lady, her husband had suddenly died a year and a half roughly before, massive heart attack. There was no autopsy. Her family, her dead husband's family thought she might have killed him, it turns out. Cut the story short, her husband had been dead for less than 3 weeks when we started dating. Nothing showed up easily when I Googled her, and when I dug deep, there was very little online about her. It was very suspicious, and I should have been my normal paranoid self. I social engineered the situation, so she thinks she's dumped me, so I think I'm safe. I think I'm okay. Oh, yeah, I was dating an ex-mob wife. Somebody Googles you, something better show up, and it better be good. It's very easy to get stuff online about you. LinkedIn. I think all professionals should be in LinkedIn, unless there's a reason not to be. Some of us may have roles where we can't be. Search engines love it. You control what's there. You pay for it. The free version's fine. The guy that wrote the first book on LinkedIn uses the free version. You write reviews on industry blogs. Comments. Halfway, at least halfway intelligent comments. Now, there are fewer blogs that allow comments. But I can tell you, I looked about a year and a half back, and comments I left a decade ago on Bruce Schneier's blog are still indexed by Google and show up. Now, they don't show up high in the search results because I've got other stuff. I got a lot of stuff online about me. You can read professional books on Amazon, write your own profile, put stuff there. Review my book, I'll be happy. You write articles, it's not that hard. Lots of places you can put them. LinkedIn articles, peer lists, websites, other people's websites, and so forth. Somebody looks you up. Some good stuff should show up. And it's not that hard. There's nothing there. And start with LinkedIn. It's free. You write what's there, and the search engines will index it. Offline. Now, most things offline get echoed online as well. For example, this is offline, right? I'm here, I'm physically here. This is on the internet, right? You Google me and it's like, oh, Ted spoke here. He must be smart, right? Or at least involved in security. Getting involved in the local community. I know lots of organizations are always looking for volunteers. You'll probably have fun too and meet some cool people. Giving talks. Now, some places giving talks can be competitive. You're not going to start talking at Black Hat, for example. But there's lots of local events, B-sides and others, where they're looking for speakers all the time. And by the way, speaking's not hard. Anybody can do it. People ask me, how can you stand up in front of a crowd and talk? And it beats working, right? This is fun. Writing a book, I'll be honest, I am a horrible writer traditionally. I'm atrocious. When my parents moved 20 years ago, the archaeological dig dug up some high school papers. Oh boy, was I bad. English is also not my first language. But apparently I can write books. It's not that hard. You can learn to do it. Now, most of you probably won't, but it's not that hard. By the way, you can write an ebook. You can stick it in Kindle. It could be 80 pages long, something that provides value. Right? Doesn't have to be War and Peace. And guess what a screenshot of a Kindle book looks like? Like a real book, because it is a real book, and it gives you enormous credibility. Now, we can't all get quoted in the mainstream media. Depending on our role, our organization may or may not support us to do that, but it's not that hard. It's a learned skill. It's something you learn to do. It doesn't. I had an article in USA Today. I've been in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times. Pick all the major media, except for TV, which is very little of that, but I've been in all of it. That doesn't mean I'm smart. It just means I figured out how to do it. If somebody Googles you and they see you're quoted in the Wall Street Journal, or you mention it in your bio or on your CV, then that adds enormous credibility. Now, I didn't come up with this analogy. I don't know where I got this. I stole this from someone, and not from my, my ex-mob wife friend either. But it's the $1 million racehorse analogy. If you owned a $1 million racehorse, real dollars, Canadian dollars, you'd make sure that horse was really taken good care of. You'd make sure it ate healthy food, got enough exercise, got adequate rest, and so forth. Okay, I like horses, but you know what? I like people better. We're more important than horses. Some of you may disagree, but I think people are more important than horses. You're more important than a $1 million racehorse. You should take good care of yourself. You also need to be happy. I'm in this for the long term. I got friends my age. I'm in my mid-50s. I got friends my age that are talking about retiring. I've got a couple that have. And I'm like, how can you retire? It's like, there's just so many things I want to do, you know? I'm still going to be doing this in 20 years, God willing. I'll be doing this in 50 years. It may slow down a little bit what I'm doing. I may be coming to Halifax more and going to Houston, Texas less, for example. Nothing against Houston, it's just kind of a depressing area now with the oil industry. So, you know, what makes you happy? Okay, I like noisy children. I like the outdoors. I like interesting things to eat and drink that I haven't tried before. They make me happy. Everybody has different things that make them happy. Life's going to have ups and downs. I'm going to claim my life has higher highs and lower lows than most people. And I'm fairly entrepreneurial, and I think most entrepreneurs this is true for. But things are going to be up and down. Now, the most common questions I've gotten in the talks that I've given have been on sex and drugs. So we'll address that quickly. Now, they're important because they can make people very happy or very unhappy, and they are mentally associated with rock and roll. Most people end up with a long-term partner, and I can only speak from the male perspective here, but I know most males, once they get into a long-term relationship, don't invest in the relationship. Relationships take a lot of work. You'll put enormous time into hobbies, but not the relationship. And the relationship matters. Let's say we're in an organization, and let's say we're in management and we're working up the corporate ladder, as they say. You know, one thing they look at, most organizations, they usually term it stable personal life. That's considered a management or leadership competency. The person you're married to matters. Now, my lovely ex-wife, and she is a lovely lady, great lady. I talked to her last night. We get along perfectly well, wonderful person. If I wanted to move up the corporate ladder, and that's never been my desire, she was not the right wife to have. Absolutely not. I probably wouldn't be the right husband if she wanted to do that either, right? But you have to invest in your relationships. They take work. It's important. We have so many questions on drugs. First of all, I don't do any illegal drugs. I don't do most legal drugs as well. Not making any judgments. Alive and clean. These people have been making great music for a long period of time and hopefully will for a long period of time, providing value to their, I'm going to use the term customers or fans. I'm not too sure about Steven Tyler from Aerosmith. I'm not sure if he's really clean. He claims he is. He's actually from New Hampshire. He claims he's from Boston. He's lying. Dead. That is permanent. In the first list from Jimi Hendrix to Bon Scott, they died of my second favorite drug, of alcohol. Yeah. I think about people dying of alcohol a lot because, well, I have a lot of alcohol and I've got a 17-year-old son. And I could just see him with some of his Beavis and Butthead friends deciding to guzzle a bottle of whiskey, and people end up in the emergency room and dead from that. I don't mind if he steals some of my wine or beer. I prefer he doesn't, right? But, so, I have a very simple stance here. I'm in favor of sex and drugs. Apparently I like women related with the mob. No, I'm joking there. I am single at the time. I prefer women that have multi-generational wine cellars, but I'm willing to compromise. I'm not remotely promiscuous. Eventually I'll be in another long-term relationship. My favorite drug, caffeine. I drink a lot of coffee. I love great coffee. And alcohol. I don't drink to excess. Those of you in the bar last night will hopefully agree with that. I did leave relatively early. But I try to do things in moderation. I know I'm drinking too much when it's affecting the other fun things I want to do in life, like this. Now, not everybody can be a rock star, right? Not everybody can be the star. You know, not everybody can be the CEO of their company. Not everyone in North Korea can be the great leader or whatever that guy's called, the chubby guy with a bad haircut. But one thing that was instilled in me from very young by my father is we can all get better at what we do. We can always improve. We can all move towards Rockstar. And if somebody thinks they're a rock star, they're probably a bozo. They're probably not a rock star, right? Because we can all improve. Now, I've got a quote from the great Peter Drucker. How many of you know Peter Drucker? Okay, a few people, not that many. Peter Drucker, amazing rock star of man, wrote 39 books, considered the father of modern management. He coined the term knowledge worker. He said effectiveness can be learned. Rock stars are effective, are incredibly effective. They add value. They add value to their world, whether it's security or music or accounting or whatever it is they do. And I have a lot of nerve listing my quote next to Peter Drucker's. But it's my talk, so I can do it. Right? I think rockstar status can be at least approached. We can all get better at what we do. We can all improve. And it's not just by concentrating on the geek skills. There are other equally important skills. Now, I certainly wouldn't put myself at the rockstar level. I'd put myself somewhere between expert and authority. I'm certainly not the authority that I'd like to be. There's a lot of things I would like to do better. I would be better at. That includes both technical and non-technical skills. I'd like to improve my writing ability. I'm learning more about project management because I'm involved in projects all the time, whether they're formal projects or not. where we can all improve, we can all move up. And it might be some of our skills are lower here and others are higher. I've become a pretty good writer. And you would absolutely agree I've improved if you looked at my old stuff, right? But there's other areas where, yeah, I'm barely stable. But I'm working on improving, and that's the important thing. So big picture, most successful Infosec rock stars, people that I consider to be, that we probably all do, have great personal lives as well, have great lives. It's one part of your life. I don't think we have a work life and a personal life. We've got one life, and they're fairly integrated. Maybe more integrated for me as a consultant, I don't know, but they're not, it's not like you leave work and you don't think about it and it doesn't interfere and vice versa. The geek stuff, absolutely critical, absolutely needed. But there's other skills as well. Geek alone will only get you so far. So, going to break for questions in just a minute. I have no idea how we're doing time-wise, but that's okay, because I have people in charge of that, giving me the thumbs up. I think that's good. That means good in Canada too, right? Actually, I spent a lot of time here. So, after questions and answers, I'm going to be outside. I've got a few copies of the book that I'll be signing and selling for less than the chapters and Amazon price and so forth. And you can also, for at least the next couple of days, order it from this Halifax link that I have right here. And I will sign it and send it to you, but it might take a month or two. I do have a few copies outside. So any questions? I must have answered everything. Yes? You may reserve one of the copies signed, absolutely. You'll have to follow me outside quickly. I'll keep one aside for you. Okay. I'd like to thank everybody, especially the people that have put together this conference. I'm really looking forward to these couple of days, and I'm so happy that I could change my schedule around so I can not only be here now, but that I can stay for the next couple of days. Thank you, everybody.
So, everyone, for the first year, we have commemorative coins for AtlSecCon for our speakers. And I'm very pleased to give Ted the first one. So thank you very much for coming all this way.
Number one. Thank you.
Number one, baby. You are number one.
Thank you, Travis.
You're a rock star.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Will.
Cheers.
All right. Thanks again, Ted Demopoulos. Thank you very much, man. Cheers.